Hi, everybody. I was grabbing, my daughter was bringing me a hot cup of tea right when they hit the live button. So I was like, whoops. Hi. Happy Sunday to everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the housing market once again. And is it going to crash? Because, I know, and I've been super guilty of this because at the beginning of the pandemic, the way the things were looking with so many people out of jobs and out of work, and I had a couple transactions that it looked like definitely we were going to be heading for a crash. A newspaper article just came out recently, and this is basically falls in line exactly of how my thinking is right now. Eddie's going to be pulling it up right this very second. Ta-da! Let's see here. I said, should you prepare for the housing crash of 2021? It goes down to say, will there be a housing crash in 2021? Majority of experts think not. People are saying we're in a bubble, but I don't think the term housing bubble is the right description, says Tabitha Mazzara, director of the operations of mortgage lending M Bank. A bubble is something that is going to pop. I look at it as a phase. The market is cynical, and there may be some slight correction, but it won't be nearly as bad as we saw in 2008, which I've been saying forever. What's the difference today from what we saw in 2008 is that people who qualify for loans are actually getting the loans. Thank you for making that bigger, Eddie. I appreciate it. Eddie's my producer in the back. They are credit worthy, and we're in a situation now because there's simply a supply problem. We just don't have enough homes on the market, and there isn't enough builders building those homes. Eric Wright says, in a similar take, personally, I think the factors influencing our market are much different than 2008. He said, I am expecting the market to begin to cool off for a bit and then more of a plateau than a crash. However, I'm always looking to be prepared just in case something drastic happens and we do experience a real estate crash. The thing is like everybody thinks they have this crystal ball and no one can predict the housing crash. Today, I have a special guest on, and it was requested by you guys to have somebody on from Utah. And I have my friend Joe Eves coming in, and he is from Utah. He is a real estate agent out of the Utah market, and we're going to bring him on. Ta-da! Hey, Joe.
I'm
Eves,
here.
Can you tell everybody about yourself and your expertise a little bit?
Yeah, you bet. So my name's Joe Eves, and thank you, Kristina, for asking me to join this. My background is I've been a real estate broker for about 10 years. And so I've been doing real estate a long time. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed is I deal a lot in the new construction, in a lot of development, and especially I'm in St. George, southern Utah, so it's growing like crazy here, just like all parts of Utah and all parts of the country, really. I don't think there's a spot that I've noticed that isn't busy. So I've been doing that a long time, and I've done lots and lots of transactions. I've been a buyer's agent, I've listing, I've done run teams. I've had a lot of experience in that, so I'm happy to be here.
So do you think that, well, if you haven't figured out, Joe works with a lot of the developers and builders that are starting these homes from scratch, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I know that you've actually even like flown out to get some developers to come to your area to build more homes, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a question about your, before we get into the housing crash problem. Last week, this came up. What do you guys do about water? Like, I want to know. I know this has nothing to do with the crash.
Well, that's a big deal. It's a big issue, and I would say the thing right now is we have a lot of water that a lot of people don't realize that we have a lot of water. Right now they're trying to obviously to get a pipeline from Lake Powell to southern Utah, and the thing is that Utah actually has a lot of water rights that they haven't actually acted on. The other states have, like for example, California, Nevada, they have been pulling water from the Colorado River for a long time, and they've been getting a lot of water. but we as a state of Utah have, and there's a few other states that border Utah that haven't pulled really any water from those. So we do have actual rights to that water that we've just never used. So there's a lot of controversy with that. But that being said, we still have a lot of natural springs. There's lots of water aquifers. We have a lot of water. I think the issue is that we need to be smart with the water that we have. And, we are in the desert, so to make sure that we landscape and we develop according to more of the desert type stuff that you would see in like Phoenix and Las Vegas, areas like that, to be more of a desert landscape type thing and be water conservative with the water that we have.
More energy efficient. Yeah, totally
Yes.
off the housing crest thing, but that was one of those things that came up last week in our last live stream, and we're like, what do you do with the water in Utah? Because I was out there, it was pretty dry. So back to the housing crash conversation really quick.
Okay.
I mean, we'll reel it back in. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that we're going to see a crash like we did in 2008? Do you think that's even a thing that could possibly happen in, let's just say, the next 2 years?
So I obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but what I do see is that real estate repeats itself and trends repeat itself. I personally don't think we're headed for a crash, and the big reason why is because there's too many restrictions. There's too many things that come into play with why the crash happened in 2008 to begin with. You read in the article, but a lot of it was stated income loans. So if you have a stated income loan, and for the people that don't know what that is it's a loan that you basically say how much you make. So you could be working at a job and you wanted let's say a $500,000 house. You just said that you made enough money to afford the $500,000 house when there was no checks and balances from the mortgage company, from the banks, to verify your income and to make sure that you had employment when they gave the loan. That happened a lot. And then the other thing that added to that is there was a lot of straw buyers. And I don't know if you guys know what straw buyers are, but that's basically a fake buyer, someone that literally a fake contract would be written up to raise the price, and then they would do what's called a simultaneous close, and they would close with a real buyer, but they use that straw buyer's contract to get more money. So a lot of like shady stuff I think happened in 2008, and the government stepped in, which I feel like was a good thing. They stepped in and put more regulations on lending. They put more regulations on real estate, and they really put more regulations on the qualifying a home buyer too. So to answer your question, I know this is kind of a long answer, but to answer your question is right now, you have to pretty much, besides donate DNA, you have to give them everything that you possibly have to get a loan. Like loans now are very scrupulous in looking at your paperwork and looking at your taxes and looking at your income and verifying your income with bank statements, all these things to verify that you can afford the house. I don't know what you're seeing, but what I'm seeing here in Utah is very few government program loans. They're usually conventional or cash. So I'm seeing a lot of people that are very well qualified that are buying the homes that are buying. Back in 2008, it was a lot more government assisted programs. It was a lot more rural housing loans, no money down loans, things like that. And now people are taking equity, or a lot of it is coming from other parts of the country, but they're taking that equity and they're coming and they're putting a huge amount down. With the low interest rates that we have, they're able to get a really nice home at a very, very affordable deal if they don't pay cash for the whole thing. So I don't see us going into the next 2 years a crash. I do, however, think that there is going to be a correction, and it's going to be a correction on right now. It's a seller's market, and to have a really healthy real estate market, you need to have more listings. And there needs to be a good balance between buyers and sellers. And right now, in our area in Utah, there's not enough homes for all of the buyers that we have. And so
it's the same all over the country. It's the same all over the country.
Yeah. So like as that corrects, which it is, I'm already seeing it. From May, we had 300 listings on the MLS in Washington County, and yesterday we had over 800 listings. So we're getting more and more, and there's more coming on the market. So a healthy market for Utah and Southern Utah especially is about 2,000 homes on the market at any given day. And so as we get closer to that and it's cooling off, people are starting to think, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sell. As that happens, more building permits have been pulled. So homes are going to be completed. COVID put a wrench in a lot of that because of materials and things like that, trying to get them, price inflation, that kind of stuff. Lumber has come back down. So we'll see. I think we'll see a correction of it going down a little bit and then plateauing. I don't see a crash. I think it's going to be very much more like it was like 3 or 4 years ago. I think it'll correct that.
So it'll be more like the Great Correction instead of the Great Housing Crash, like we had.
Yes.
That's what I think so too, and I think it's going to stay. I think what people are going to really be mad, especially if they're selling, is that it's going to stay at those prices for like over a year. Like they're not going to gain much equity in a 2 to 3 year period of time. They're not going to drop
really
like rock.
We've been really spoiled. You know, if your house goes up 50% in 2 years, you know, which has happened here. There's homes in my neighborhood that someone bought for like, I don't know, 400,000, sold it for almost 900,000 3 years later, like that. Mm-hmm. So yes, there's going to be some corrections but I think what's going to happen more than anything is it really depends on what the Fed does, right? If the Fed raises interest rates, the prices are going to go down.
The rumor is that they are going to raise it. Like that was what I've been listening to the mortgage people this week, and that they are all saying that it's going to happen within, you know, in the next like September, October, we're going to start seeing rates tick back up. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, just to have just some more houses come on the market. And, you know, we can't keep these interest rates as low as they've been. I mean, this has been historically low for so many years, like a lot of years. Like I never even imagined that they would have stayed as low as they have for as long as they have. And it's unsustainable. So they're going to have to like tick them up. Now, I hope we don't see them like we did. Like, I don't really remember this, but my parents bought a house in the 80s and I think their interest rate was like 12%. 25%. It was like 12.5%. My dad got a really good deal, you know?
Yeah. I don't know either. I think that the Fed is smart and they're careful about how they do things to not disrupt the economy, because we've already had other elements with COVID and some of the other things that have caused a wrench. But like you said, it's not sustainable. It has to go up. And when that happens, there will be a good opportunity for people to pick up houses as well, because then the prices days on market will be longer. Sellers will get nervous and they'll take whatever offer that they can get, because as the interest rates rise, the purchase price usually, you know, it goes the opposite. And so I think if if people are looking and they're scared about buying a house right now, I think what they ought to look at is locking in a 30-year fixed mortgage. The market is, I just don't see signs of it going like a 2008 crash. And honestly, like at this point, try to find a rental. In Utah, it is extremely hard to find a rental, and the mortgage or the rent on it is more than what your payment would be if you owned it.
If you look at the rental prices throughout the country, they have gone up exponentially. That is not just unique to Utah. That's not unique to California. That's not unique to Louisiana. It's all over the country. Rental prices have skyrocketed. They're so expensive. The thing that I'm looking forward to, if there is a rise in interest rates, is that maybe more sellers would be more apt to take those loans from people that do have the FHA and VA loans, because that happened a lot last year. They would ex-nay ex-nayed that, VA loan immediately, or FHA loan, because they are like, oh, this is too much work. I'm not willing to take that because someone else is going to give me $30,000 cash. I did get an FHA loan accepted. I got an offer accepted with an FHA loan this past week. The seller was a for sale by owner, but I will tell you, I had showed her so many houses and we did a ton of offers, and they kept saying no, kept saying no, kept saying no. And these sellers are still just as horrible as they were a year ago. Like some of the things that they were demanding from the buyer, I'm like, we'll find another house. And she was like, okay. I'm like, we'll find another house. I'm like, if they're like this at the beginning, can you imagine how they're going to be through the whole entire process? And then we ended up finding her a beautiful home, and it's a for sale by owner. So
yeah,
I
mean, you're right. There definitely are those programs are great programs, and don't get me wrong, like that people should be taking advantage of them. And I agree with you that as interest rates raise, the ability for a conventional loan is probably going to be a lot more difficult, and so using these government assisted programs are going to be very, very welcomed. The one thing that I think is interesting is, I don't know about you, but about 5 years ago, the buyers had all the power, and sellers were like, oh my gosh, they were getting bent over backwards. They were like, I'll do whatever. And the buyers were like, you got to do all this. You got to replace the carpet. You got to do this. And sellers were like, because there were so few, there were tons and tons of sellers, but so few buyers, that it was kind of like the tables have turned. And I think that the sellers were like, I remember when I had to buy, and I'm going to just stick it to them now, and it's just one of those things that I'm like, man, it really is like a carousel. It just goes around and around, and real estate, it's a cycle, and getting good advice and looking for good deals and working the programs at the appropriate time are always way better than if you have the ability, then getting into a rental, because rentals, you just never are. It makes it very, very hard to get into home ownership. And so that's why these government programs, that's exactly what they're for, is to help people move towards home ownership.
Yep. Like it says, apartment rent housing costs soar. Average U.S. rental price surpasses $1,200 for the first time. And it's everywhere. Like in our area, like the rent, we charge, I think, a fair amount. And people are like, you guys rent so cheap. And I'm like, well, I'm just looking at it as like, it's just a little house, like I'm not charging $1,200 for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house, like give me a break. We have a question here that says, Post Office Joe, I believe when the scare of interest rates going up, you will see another mad rush of buying this, another push in prices. You're right, because there was during the pandemic a slight tick that made the prices go like the interest rates go up. And then, I mean, the phone would not stop. And like you're fighting with 20, 30, 40 different offers coming in, just because it had gone up just a little bit, because they were trying to, beat it just to, to save like another, $50 or something,
right.
And I understand like it, like how high will it go? I mean, I remember there were times over the years that I've done real estate that you would have a interest rate of 4.75 and then it would be 5.25 within, a week and a half. And you're like, wow, that went up a lot. That's a lot when you add it all up. So I can understand the mad frenzy, but you're right. You're right, Joe. You're right. If you have any questions, anybody in the chat, just make sure you write the word question first so Eddie can find it in the chat, and then he can put it up on the screen and you'll get your question answered. I do also want to remind you that thank you so much to the people that donated to Owen Hasnath's cancer treatments last week. If you did donate to that treatment, please send me an email with a receipt, and I will, if I have any cups left, I will send you all the cups I have left. And so just make sure that you put the receipt for that that you did donate last week, and I will send you one of my big Your Real Estate Whisperer cups. I don't know if you guys seen them, But look, there they are.
That's a little cup there.
Yeah, it's a little cup. It's a gumbo bowl, really, with a handle. But yeah, so that really did help my friend Owen out. And if you haven't yet, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. So going into the future, if you are a home buyer right now and you have, a pretty healthy down payment, say you have like 10% down, you're going to be using a FHA or even a conventional loan. What do you think would be a good offer right now? Do you think it's okay for a home buyer to ask for something like a home warranty, or do you still think that they should remove those type of contingencies to get their offer accepted?
So what I'm seeing here is that builders are getting a lot more flexible. I put an offer in that was $25,000 less than what they had the list price on the MLS for, and
Wow.
And they actually they countered, but they accepted the price. They had a couple little things because we wanted to finish the backyard, do the block wall. I mean, we really don't be afraid to
Ask for it
offer
all.
that. Yeah, the builders right now that at least what I'm seeing is they're getting overextended. They've built a lot of houses and they've got a lot of money that comes due. And these houses they're not selling like they were in May, where you would have 30 offers and they would remove all contingencies and you pay $50,000 above ask price. Now, if you see a builder and they have it on the MLS, they're willing to negotiate. And usually what I would do is I'll go in there, and I just saw what their recent sales were from what they listed it. And I mean, granted, they're still making a ton of money because they've added the lumber cost on top of that, all the other costs, even though the homes that they're building now, the prices have dropped again. But they've kept that list price the same. So they have a lot of wiggle room for you to either get a discount or for you to have them do extra things that maybe you couldn't get 2 months ago. So, and I see that happening more and more, where they're even looking at contingent offers now, where before it was a contingent on the sale of the home, they would be like, no, I'm not even interested in any contingencies. Now they're like, oh, well, is it under contract? When's it going to sell? They're a lot more pliable than they were even like I said 2 months ago. So at least what I'm seeing and what I think is going to happen in the fall is there's going to be more homes that, at least in southern Utah, there's going to be a lot more homes on the market and a lot of new construction that's going to be finishing up. And if we don't have the buyers for it, then that opens up a lot more room for negotiating, as a buyer and a buyer's agent, to not be scared to offer a little bit less than what they have, or to offer what they feel comfortable with, and a lot of that can. Oh, go ahead.
We haven't had that here in Louisiana yet, but I do know somebody that was able to get about $2,000 in closing costs, and they were able to get a refrigerator from the builder, which is unheard of here, like totally unheard of. We don't do refrigerators. Well, of course the stove and oven and all that, and the dishwasher always stay, but not a refrigerator. That's not considered an attached component. But they were able to get that, which was like, wow, like,
yeah, they're feeling
wow.
like they got a good deal at that point.
Yeah, because what's been like, they were canceling contracts and then putting them back on the market for more money to make up building costs. But we still don't have enough supply. And if that does happen, like you say, it's going to happen, that is a good thing for home buyers. And it's actually a good thing for home sellers too. To have an even market is not necessarily a terrible thing. This kind of market that you just saw is unheard of. It's not something
I've
that's
never seen
typical.
it. I've never seen it. I've seen contracts that came through that I literally was like, there's no way I would advise my client to do this, because it was like, you waive all contingencies, $10,000 released earnest money on acceptance of the contract, like just crazy stuff that I'm like, this is like
my firstborn son.
Yeah, this is like the worst deal that you could possibly do. And they're like, do it. I've been looking for months, do it. And they end up with the home, but I'm just like, man, the liability that they're opening themselves up to, was really bad. So I've never seen that before. And it's too bad that it has to go that way rather than people being amiable and being able to negotiate. You can still have a profit, but you don't have to. I don't know. There's ways around it, I guess, to make it more equitable for both parties. So.
Yeah. A lawnmowers asked, have you seen any potential buyers that do not qualify and cannot get a loan? I've not, well, I've seen, okay. So I'm going to tell you what happened to, one of my home buyers. And I really blame this on the lender. This is why it's always so important to get this on the lender. I have a client, and I had worked with her 6 months ago. She had gotten a pre-approval letter, meaning that they verified her income prior to us starting to look for homes. I won't even show homes unless you have one of these, and I've spoken to your lender. He says she's good to go. We get all the way down to like 3 days before closing, and it's shot back from underwriting, which is the if you don't know what underwriting is, it's like they take that whole loan package, they send it to them, and somebody sits there and checks every fine line and makes sure that everything is lining up. And they said there was a discrepancy in her qualifications for a loan because of her income verification. What? Like, that's what they're supposed to do at the beginning. That's what a pre-approval is for. And this lender pretty much dropped the ball. But that's the only case. And 6 months later, I mean, she's buying a house, or she has a brand new lender, by the way, one that I recommend.
Yeah, I bet she does.
Yeah, she does. And, but the only time that I've not seen somebody qualify for a loan is because their debt to income ratio is so incredibly high. Like, yes, they make good money. They have nice clothes, they have a nice car, everything else, but their debt is so much higher than the type of income that they have. And in that case, you just can't buy a home. What are you seeing in your area there?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I think that just like you, I encourage anyone that is looking to buy to have that pre-approval. And there is a difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification. Mm-hmm. So making sure that they're actually getting pre-approved for the loan, because it does a lot of things. One, it gives them knowledge, and that knowledge helps them act. So if they know that their payment's going to be this, and this is what they're qualified up to, it gives them a lot more confidence in going and shopping in the market. So a pre-approval is super important. Like you, it's very rare that you find someone that has gets pre-approved, gets to closing table, and then they don't fund because they found a discrepancy and the underwriter kicked it out or something. Like, I don't see that often. Usually it's if that happened, it's because the lender did a poor job doing their job.
Bingo. But I'm going to tell everybody what the difference between a pre-qualification letter and a pre-approval letter is. A pre-qualification letter means that, Nancy calls up a lender, says, I make, $140,000 a year. I only have a few credit cards. One of them has 3,000, another one has 6,000, and I have no other debts. How much can you qualify me for? So the lender says, well, I can qualify you for about this much. And then they write it on a piece of paper and they hand it over. A pre-qualification letter is not even worth the paper that it's written on. That's why you want it's true though. A pre-approval letter. A pre-approval letter means that they have taken these people's W-2s. They've looked at their bank statements. They've looked at their pay stubs. They've gone through their finances with a fine-tooth comb, and they know exactly how much they can qualify for, and they're willing to write a letter accordingly. That is what you want. And, don't be upset if a real estate agent asks you for that ahead of time before they go show a house, because we want to make sure that the person that we're taking and showing around houses to is able to purchase a home. I know I've had people get really upset with me. They're like, well, I don't even know if I want to go get a loan right now. I'm not even sure if I'm ready to buy a house. Well, then go to open houses, because that's a lot of my time. It sounds rude, but okay. Johnny Patterson has a question real quick. I listed a house in Marrero, Louisiana. That's my town, for 160. It's a fixer upper. It's been 10 days with one low offer. Should I lower the price? I'm going to tell, this is just for me in the Louisiana market. I'm not real sure with Marrero, but if it was here in Ascension Parish, if it's been on the market for 160,000, even though it's a fixer upper and it hasn't been scooped up yet, I would drop the price. That's just me. That's just me. If you're not willing to fix it up just to get it more sellable and you want to get it unloaded, if it was me, I'd drop the price. That's just me. That's my neck of the woods, because the thing is that the Louisiana market here is good, and if you have anything that's under 200,000, you can just forget it. That's why my client had to buy a house that was for sale by owner, because there is nothing on the MLS unless it's proposed construction. That means they haven't even scraped the ground yet. So if you want anything in that $230,000 range, you have to buy either a new construction or wait and literally as soon as they hit the market, we're running to the house. We're running to the house to get there to be able to put in an offer. And we're getting beat out every single time. It's that price range is hot. Kelsey Channel says, do you believe that there will be any correction with all the people buying out of FOMO who regret buying, and the landlords are sick of dealing with tenants and builders and building more homes? This is a very interesting question. I have an opinion about this, but go ahead, Joe. What is your opinion?
I need to read it again here to make sure I understand it.
Well, you read it and I'll give you my answer.
All right.
I do believe there's going to be some people that have FOMO because they did overpay, or their neighbors are telling them that they overpaid for the house. But in reality, they didn't overpay because they got the house and the 3 other buyers were right behind them wanting to buy it for the same amount. The market dictated the price. They happened to win that bid at that specific time. There's going to be people that have regret, especially if they have to sell within the next year to 2 years, because it could be that their house doesn't gain any equity. Because like we were saying, in a couple of years, we are probably going to see a plateauing of the housing prices. So they may only gain a little bit of equity in their house. And now they're going to have to pay real estate fees to get their house sold, to move to the next area. So yes, of course, there's going to be people that have some FOMO. But I don't think that there's going to be a huge uptick of people getting rid of homes, especially the ones that are investments, because I know I'm an investor. I have rental properties. You count on the fact that there's going to be a period of time that people aren't going to be paying rent. Now, nobody expected it to be the extended period of time that we saw in 2020. I mean, that was just unheard of. But most of the people that I know that are just the mom and pop investors, they were able to turn around those properties, even though those people weren't paying rent and the moratorium was intact, where they didn't have to pay mortgage, or didn't have to pay rent for that time. There's other, we all know, there's other loopholes to remove a tenant from a house. And I worked with every single one of my tenants that had that issue. Every single one of them worked with me. We were able to work things out. There was a period of time that there was a couple months that they weren't able to pay, but they were able to pay again when we all got caught up. Not even a big deal. But I just don't see a big wave of homes that were previously rental units going on the market. And if they are, there's a bank of investors that are literally foaming at the mouth to pick up as many houses as they can, especially income earning properties. They love them. And with the inflation going up the way they are, that's what investors always do, is whenever they're trying to hedge their bets against inflation, what do? They buy rental properties. So what is your opinion on that?
Okay, so I had time to process this. I think that it depends on what type of person you're talking about. So it says, do you think there'll be a correction of people buying out of FOMO or who regret and the landlord's sick of dealing? To me, that sounds like 2 different people. But what I would say is, if it's an investor, they've already sold if they were selling. They probably sold at first of the year. And a lot of it is because they're amassing their money to get ready for the next purchase. But that's a very, very small part. I had some clients, he sold 14 properties because he was like, I've made a ton of money. I'm done. I just, how fast can you sell them? And we sold them in a month and a half. And so, and then he put it in crypto. So anyway, the guy is yeah, he's awesome. So anyway,
he regrets that decision. Jeez.
Yeah, hey, he likes to live by the seat of his pants. But anyway, the point is that most, at least what I'm seeing and what I've done, is most people hang on to an investment property until it doesn't make financial sense for them anymore. And a monthly rent lost or a year's worth of rent lost is not what the equity that they have, according to, because if they want to turn around and sell it, they could sell it very, very easily. I had a property that I actually sold just last week that I owned, a duplex, but it's because I picked it up for such a good deal, and I just got tired of dealing with the tenants. And so rather than kick them out and have to deal with all that, I just sold the property. Mm-hmm. And I did extremely well on that. And so now I'm looking at more, other investments, but very few people that are investors like to get rid of their properties. They hang on to them because it makes them money. They like that monthly cash flow. And when they don't have any mortgage on it, it just increases and accelerates even faster. So I don't think that they have any kind of remorse for buying. Now, as far as, people that have bought a home and in this buying frenzy, and are they regretting that they bought? Probably not, because it's better than where they came from. So I don't, at least here, I've never mm-hmm. heard of anyone a month later saying, man, I wish I wouldn't have bought. That's not true. I know not one yet. Person. I know mm-hmm. one person right now, and he's a real estate agent, and he sold his house too quickly. He's mad mm-hmm. that he didn't wait a little longer, but right, you don't have a crystal ball. So as far as that stuff goes, I don't think that they're worried yet. If the prices keep going up, it all just depends on what the market does. We're talking that the market doesn't have any correction, and something can happen, and it could do a major correction that we don't even foresee. And, right. Well, and then we could have problems.
Another correction that people keep talking about is that there's still 2.2 million Americans that are on the forbearance plan, the mortgage forbearance plan, that's scheduled to end. Some mortgage companies are going to even extend it a little longer. It depends on your mortgage company. And you have you can still file for it even to this day, but it's scheduled to end soon. I don't see even that being the issue because of the fact that even the mortgage companies themselves have flat out said, we are not in the business this time to foreclose on as many properties as possible. We're trying to work with as many people as we can so they do not go into foreclosure, because it's really a hassle for them. It costs them a lot of money to do the foreclosure process. And they've already come up with a restructured loan payment plan for some of these people that, had gotten themselves into tough shape. And so that's what I see. I'm going to see, I think just like before, they're going to be doing a lot of restructured loan plans. And if you looked at when the crash happened and we got a couple years into it, that's what a lot of banks were doing and saying, hey, before you foreclose, before you short sale, let's not short sale. Let's see if we can restructure your loan. What do your bill payments look like now? And people were sending in their check stubs, and they would just reformat their whole entire loan so they could refinance it basically through their same company. There was some penalties that were added to it, but that it saved their house so they didn't have to move out of it. So I assume that's where they're going to go again, because it's just such a headache. It costs them so much to go through that whole process. And it would take all of those 2.2 million people to jump on the market and throw them on the market to really crash the market at one time. And no bank is going to throw all of their foreclosures on the market at once. They never do. No, never do.
They let those go out very slowly. They're very, and that's at the point when that happens, that's when the investors are waiting to pick those up.
Foaming at the mouth, waiting for them.
They're just waiting.
Yeah, they are. They're all licking their lips right now. Nazar says, Joe, in Portland, in Northwest Portland, Vancouver area, is October a slow season? Meaning, will the competitions subside a little or unusual? Will the competition subside a bit usually? I don't know about Portland, Vancouver. Or you're not in Canada.
I'm not
in Utah.
I'm not in Portland, but I actually had talked to someone 2 days ago that is from Portland, and they're selling their house and they're moving here. And I don't know how October is, but they said they put their house on the market, and like 3 days later it went under contract.
Vancouver is very hot. Very hot.
It's and I said, well, did you get a good price? They said, oh, we had top of the market. Like they didn't wait. So I couldn't speak to that other than what talking to buyers that are coming here, and they're not even worried about putting their house on the market and then buying here because it's that area in Vancouver has been very hot for them.
Price point wise too. When they move down here, they're probably gonna think they won the lottery.
I know, right?
I'm not saying your name, but I'll just say Tube. It's so cool that you are our favorite realtor show, and then you just up the road from me, loving y'all from Springfield, Louisiana. Hey there, from Springfield, Louisiana. Yep, we're just down the road a stitch. Jay Stratton says, question, in Las Vegas, should you sell now, even though you didn't really want to and have nowhere to go, or better to wait it out after selling for a foreclosure? Depends on how much time you got. I mean, what do you say, Joe?
So if you don't have to sell, don't sell.
Yeah,
that's my advice. Like, home ownership is hard to get, and it can be hard to keep. So if you don't have to sell, try to structure it. Try to work with, like what Kristina was saying, is talk with the lender. Try to get something creative. There's a lot of banks that are flush with money, and they may have a program that is maybe not something that's advertised as well. But
I will say too, I just thought of this and if I don't say it now, I won't even get it out. But when I was listening to that that mortgage podcast I was listening to, the mortgages are even tighter now. The what they're asking for and the loan acceptance is even tighter. Like, they're really like checking things twice and making sure every single dot is dotted twice and every single T is crossed twice.
They'll even call after you close to make sure you still have your job.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
So don't quit your job after you buy your house if you're planning on quitting your job.
I wonder, I didn't even know that was a thing. I had somebody quit their job the day of closing.
No. So what we're seeing here is people are like, oh, I'm going to quit my job. And they call the verify income. They call their employer, and the employer is like, oh, they quit yesterday. And, and they quit and they didn't get the loan. So you have to make sure that the loan has funded and it's recorded before you do anything, like anything, that's the biggest thing that I think people have had happen that lose out on houses is either they sign up for a credit card or they quit their job. Car and quit their job. Those are the ones that I've seen.
I've told this story many times, but I'll tell it again. I almost wasn't able to purchase my last home because while we were purchasing it, which we were more than qualified, had a huge down payment, but I bought a refrigerator. I didn't think that was a big deal. But I just honestly didn't think it was a big deal. And I bought a refrigerator, and they were like, you're a real estate agent. How do you not know that? I'm like, because it was a refrigerator. Like, we have enough money in our savings account. We have a big down payment we're putting down. It's a refrigerator. I don't understand I still to this day don't know what the big deal was, but apparently it was a big deal. I still was able to close. So they ended up doing it. Liberty Returns, longtime subscriber and watcher of the show, says, question, is it true that they're tightening up lending requirements going forward? Look at that. I just answered it. Yes. They are. And like every single loan, every time that we get into closing, like my buyers are telling me, they're like, you wouldn't believe I had to resend in all of this stuff. They literally made me have a bank statement from today, like with all my ATM transactions and everything. Like they had to give in full detailed bank statements, not just, what we used to do, which was the one from the month before. Like, they need it from that moment. So yes, they're definitely getting tighter.
They are 100%. Very, very strict. Yep.
Yeah.
And
which is a good thing.
I don't think it's going to lighten up at all either. I think if anything, it's going to maintain or even get a little bit more where they're really checking to make sure that you can qualify and afford the loan that they're providing.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, to make sure that the people that are purchasing a home can actually buy a home and stay in that home and not going to be foreclosed on. I mean, they're trying to protect their butts too. So The only people that I think it hurts are the people that are trying to get into that first time home buying situation. But as more homes get on the market and lenders and I'm not lenders, but sellers have become more realistic with their acceptance of offers, and home builders are more willing to work with first time home buyers, we're going to get a lot more of those FHA loans accepted. So that would be a good thing. That would definitely be a good thing. Oh, I have a question for you real quick. We're going to do this question real quick, and then I have a question for you. Do you think real estate is bust that luxury homes 1 million will hold? Depends on the area.
Do you want me to answer what I see? So so we have a luxury market here that's multi-million-dollar plus. There's beautiful homes. Most of that hasn't changed in the whole time I've done my real estate career. So it's a very steady eddy. Now, when you get closer to 1 million, then it becomes a little bit more, flexible. But if you're like million, 800,000 up, usually there isn't. And what's crazy is a lot of them here, it's a second or third home for that person. It's not
exactly.
It's not their primary residence.
And they buy them cash.
Yeah. So that market doesn't fluctuate as much, but like the 800,000 to $1 million, depending on the area and depending on what the market's doing, it definitely fluctuates.
Like I was going to ask you a question, but my brain is so ADD that I totally forgot that question. I hate that. I should have wrote it down. Ron asks, we are selling our home in Utah. Congratulations, Ron. And moving to St. George. Ooh, that's this guy's town. That's his town. Ives in St. Clair area. How much over asking are buyers typically offering? That's a good question for you, Joe.
So it depends on the area in Ivins or Santa Clara, and it depends on if it's a new construction or if it's something that's pre-existing already. If it's new construction, I actually have a lot in Ivins that's I don't know, it's like $250,000, and the homes that are being built in there are $1 million plus. That area, it's more about just meeting with the builder and going over a building plan with them. If they have something listed and it's not sold and it's been on the market longer than 30 days, my guess would be that you have a very good chance of getting it at asking or a little less than asking.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
I don't think they put it on the MLS for a reason. If it wasn't on the MLS, they're not worried about selling it. If they put it on the MLS, it's because they know that they need to move that inventory and they need to turn that money. So as far as the market is very different, even though it's only been a couple months, it's very different from May and June. The market is softened a little bit and it's cooled off a little bit. So I don't see a lot of over asking price, but it depends on the price point. If you're 350 to 400,000, you're probably going to have to ask over asking a little bit. If it's closer to 800,000 to $1 million, you might be able to get away with doing a full price offer.
Same here.
It really just depends on what that market is and depends on the area. But Ivins is beautiful. Santa Clara, you'll love all of that area over there.
Yeah, that's the same here. Like anything like in like the 400,000 and below, you're going to be struggling to find like an offer that's accepted at asking price. You're going to have to offer over unless you get lucky. I mean, I've been fortunate enough with my recent client here that she was able to get a house, but it was a first sale by owner. So if you're in don't be afraid, and your real estate agent will be able to do this as well to help you find, not necessarily find the house, but they will work with for sale by owner sellers. So that way you can get yourself a house. I know it's kind of a hassle. I mean, I'm not going to lie, because you're end up representing both sides, but it doesn't matter. You just want to find your client a house. So, I mean, you just deal with it. You suck it up. Question. We all know about unqualified loans in 2008 now. But we did not know about it then, including agents who said prior to the crash, there was going to be a great buy. What are we missing today? The thing is, we did know that it was we knew, even people that weren't even in the real estate industry knew, because they're like, my waitress just got a $250,000 house. A waitress, they're like, that's impossible. How is she getting a house nicer than mine? And I have, I work like a really well-paying job. There were people that were buying 2-3 houses and trying to flip them really quick to make a quick buck. Because in like where I used to live in Orlando, the houses were going up $10,000 to $20,000 each week. Each week. It was total insanity. And there was a lot of people that were just buying way above their means. And that's why us experienced real estate agents who saw that from years before understand that this does not look anything like this one before. The only thing that I question and I worry about is you always have to look at the jobs market. You always have to look up how many people are in default of mortgages, and we're still going to be waiting to see exactly what happens with the amount of people that are currently in forbearance. Yeah. I just don't see that 2.2 million people are just going to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to walk away from this house. Because even if they did, let's just say they couldn't find a job and they had to walk away from their house and they haven't been paying for a year. In the past year, their home has gone up exponentially. So they're going to be able to pay off that year that they didn't pay their mortgage, and they're still going to walk away with equity. So they can still put on the house on the market and still make money. The worst case scenario, they may have to like take a little bit less. That's it. So I just don't see how it could possibly crash at this time. I mean, if anything, we're just going to see a plateau, and I would think we're going to see that in a couple of years, and those prices are not going to budge for a long time. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, it really has to do with, there's so many variables that it's hard for us to say that there's one way of doing it. We can only go off of the experience that we've seen before, and we know that history repeats itself. So we do feel like there is a correction coming. But because of the safeguards the government has put in and the things that they've done to qualify people for home ownership, unless everyone like loses their job everywhere, it's not as likely as someone that was getting a house that was pre-approved for a home that they ended up closing on that they couldn't afford. And it was only a matter of, 1 or 2 months before they couldn't make their payments anymore. And you do that by everybody around the country that's doing that. That causes a big problem. People that
that's
are buying
why you always
houses,
look at the job numbers. That's
right.
why you always are looking at the jobs numbers.
Yeah,
that's what I always do.
Right now people are buying houses with cash. They're buying them with conventional loans, which means they can afford them.
So much cash. So much cash. I've never, ever, ever, this is my 15th year into real estate, never seen as much cash from just even like millennials. They're like, well, I have 30,000. I'm like, you're putting down 30,000 and you have an extra 30,000 just to make over. I mean, I'm just that mind blowing, because at that age I didn't have an extra $30,000 laying around. I know, but the people that have been getting home loans that are millennials, they do have like really, really good jobs. Like it isn't just the average person buying a house, which is unfortunate, because this is why my channel exists, is because I do want people to be able to find more affordable housing options. And in the past year, if anything that was affordable has been scooped up, and it's been scooped up for a lot more money than they were the year previous. And I'm just hoping that they come out with more affordable housing options for people that are in that starter phase, because it used to be you could work a regular job and be able to buy a nice regular little house, and that's impossible these days. So that's the unfortunate part. Liberty Returns again says, what is your forecast on Cache County? Did I say that right?
Cache. It's Cache County.
Oh, sorry.
I know.
Cache County, you mark it. Go ahead. This is you. This isn't me.
Cache County is cold, meaning physically it's cold all the time. So I don't know. I like sunny St. George. It's like on the other side of the state, like clear up by Idaho. So it's really, really cold up there. But as far as my forecast on it, are you talking the weather? Because it's
no, he's not. He's talking about housing.
I know he is. I'm just teasing him because it's so cold up there. But I guess what I would say is that Cache Valley is it has a lot of money there too, and there's a lot of, even though there's it's a smaller community, it's still a really popular place because of the college and because of other things that family. A lot of people just don't like leaving there. So I think it's a steady Eddie, just like anywhere else. It's just, I do know that you are going to see a lot more of the retiree type people that are selling their home and they're moving where it's warmer, because they're just to the point where they're like, you know what, I just don't want to deal with the winters anymore there. But it's beautiful in June, July. It's beautiful there.
All right. Old Man Dan. Oh, I like this one. Old Man Dan.
Yeah.
Oh, look at his little icon. Censored. Question. I've seen many lenders say minimum of 555 FICO, but what is a realistic minimum FICO? Nowhere near 555. I've never, ever had anybody get accepted at 555. Never.
No, it's probably one of those internet mortgage companies that are like, oh, we'll get you pre-approved and you can have a FICO of 555. Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
Everybody that I've closed in the last 6 months has been way over 700, like 714, 720, 730. Those are the credit scores I'm seeing. I think I saw one at 699. That would be the lowest one. Johnny Patterson says, instead of selling my home at a lower price, I'd rather pull it out the equity for repairs and maybe in a new investment. What companies do you recommend here in Louisiana? Johnny, do me this favor. Why don't you go ahead and email me at info@KristinaSmallhorn.com, and you and I can talk, because I can help you with that. And if you guys are looking for a real estate agent outside of the Louisiana area, I'm actually connected with over thousands of real estate agents. I actually even have a group of real estate agents with over 4,000 agents in it. So if you're looking for a real estate agent, a good one, let me know, and I will help you. That's info@KristinaSmallhorn.com. All right, question. Will prices go down 6 to 12 months from now? Oh, only I wish. Where is the crystal ball? I don't know. And nobody really knows. So my guess, this is my guess, and I do not type this in paper, because every time I even open my mouth with any kind of guess, I've gotten hammered later on when that didn't come to fruition. So I'm prefacing this as my guess, is that we're not even going to see anything at least for another 12 months, 12 to 16 months before we ever start seeing anything where it looks like we're having a flattening out of the market. That's my thought. What's your thought?
I agree. I think that unless something that comes from left field that we have no idea about, we're at least 12 to 18 months away from seeing any kind of real correction.
Jordan asks, is it common or rare for new construction homes to appraise? I've never had one not appraise. I've never had that happen. Have you had one not appraise?
No, I usually go for more.
Yeah, like $1,000. I had them where it was like the house was.
It depends, because it depends on the upgrades too. So we have homes that we build that are exactly the same, but inside are different levels of material, different quality of material and things. So they are more expensive. So even though the footprint is the same and the outer finishes are the same, the bathrooms may have a porcelain tile slash shower with a glass door with a soaker tub, where the other one just has an insert, and so there is a difference. And if they're doing all, some type of quartz or granite countertops throughout, as opposed to Formica, there are differences in new construction. They could be the identical house, but with the finishes that are different, they will appraise differently because they have different finishes. So that's why the appraiser will go back to make sure that the things that were in the contract, the upgrades and everything, were actually put in, so that he can adjust that appraisal.
I don't know how it is in Utah, but here in Louisiana, an appraiser for a new construction home goes out there 3 times. They go out there three times.
I think it's twice here. They usually go out sometime in between it being constructed, and then they go back out after the CFO has been issued.
Yeah, if the drywall has already been put up, then they only go out there twice.
Yeah.
That's how it is here. As Stewart says, question, there was a 60-day seasoning of the residential loan. Loan could be pulled back at any time, even in a 60 days after close. Not done, but they can correct. So I thought there was a 60-day seasoning of the residential loan. The loan could be pulled back at any time, even if the 60 days after the close. You know what? I think that depends on the type of loan package you would get. So some loan companies, I'm sure they have that. That makes
Seasoning
total
really
sense.
seasoning is more about where you're getting your funds from.
Right.
If you're pulling your
Deposit.
funds from one account or gifted money, they're wanting to track where that money is, and it has to season and it has to sit in a bank account before you can then use it for your loan. So
Right.
yeah,
So you can't have money under, you can't have cash under your mattress and buy a house. They always use that in real estate. But so they call it seasoned funds. So you have to take that money, exclaim where you got it from and how you received this money. Then you put it in a bank account. Then it's been sitting there marinating for the 60 days. And now you can qualify for a loan. That is the case. But I've never heard it where they wait 60 days after the home is closed to make sure
as soon as it's closed, at least in Utah, the deal is done and it is over. The only thing that I've ever seen that you have any kind of recourse after is if you do a reverse mortgage and you have like 3 days that you could then change your mind after you've closed. But if you close any other traditional financing, once it's closed, the loan is done.
Well, here in Louisiana, here you sign and you get the keys to the house. In Texas, it isn't like that. They wait 3 days for all of the paperwork to be done before you ever receive the house. But like we get our checks and everything's funded that day. How is it?
Yeah, Utah's the same. Utah's similar to where you're at. It depending on the title company and how slammed they are. If they don't record it that day, it just happens usually within 24 hours of funding. So it's more about the title company and are they on it? Are they recording doing the payoffs and recording everything to the county? But once it shows up in the county, it's recorded, then it's officially done.
I think that question came up because you had mentioned the fact that after it had closed, they were checking to make sure they still had a job. What if they didn't have a job? Do they take the house away from them?
No, I meant like they call them the day of closing.
Oh, the day of closing. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was a little confused.
They call them the day after. So like they'll put the money and it sits in the title company and they'll call after they've signed to make sure that they still have a job.
Oh, like they didn't sign, like they signed and didn't call their boss right afterwards. Hey, I just signed on my house there, buddy. I quit.
Yeah, exactly.
None of that.
So we're just like, if you're going to quit, wait until it records and funds it's in your name and then quit, because then there's no recourse. Yeah.
Right. All right. Miss Mimi says, question, how can I find a realtor? We sold our home and now can't find an agent in the area in which we want to buy just a couple in the country, acres of land in Northeast Texas. Miss Mimi, just go ahead and email me. Just email me at info@KristinaSmallhorn.com. That's Kristina with a K, Kristina, and then Smallhorn. I know the captions come up later and they always spell my name with a CH. So that's why I spelled it out this time. Yeah, just email me. I'll hook you up. Let's see. And do you want to throw something else up there? Is there any more questions that we can provide for people to answer? Here we go. Andre Allen says, what is your forecast for Las Vegas market? Do you think the prices will continue to rise? Las Vegas is one of those, it's a gambling real estate market.
Yeah.
That was good. It's a gambling town. Man, that was good. Because it's one of those things that the market inflated during the crash of 2008. It was insane. They were much like Florida in the fact that you would literally sell a house for $200,000, and then the next week the house down the street was selling for $220,000, and then the next week the next one was going up for $250,000. It was ridiculously going up high. Then the crash hit because they had one of the highest cities with the most loans that were made with these subprime mortgages and balloon payment mortgages. They were one of the top cities to have those type of loans. And not only that, a lot of investors had bought a lot of homes thinking they were going to make a quick buck. So they were buying in new subdivisions and leaving those homes to just sit there empty for years. It came back, and now it's raring to go once again. But I can understand why people would have a trepidation, especially if they lived in that market the last time. I just like anywhere else in the country, the supply is limited. There is still tons of people that are buying houses, but they're buying them cash and they're really strong buyers. I just don't see how we're going to see any market tank at the moment. What do you think there?
I get a lot of clients from Las Vegas, actually. A lot of people that are moving from Vegas to Southern Utah, and then they'll commute. And what they're telling me is that people from Vegas are selling their homes to people from California. And
Yes.
so they're, the demand is still so great from people in California. So I would say that a really good indicator on when things might start shifting is when California slows down. When California starts to slow down, you will see slowdown in the states that it's affected. And they go from all over. I mean, they're Tennessee, they come here, they go to Las Vegas, Nevada, they go to
New Orleans,
Texas,
Austin, Texas,
So there's
Fort Worth,
lots
Texas.
of places that they go, and they have a ton of people. So it's not like they have any shortage of people. So, but I would say keep a really good eye on that market, because we have the ripple effect of whatever happens with what happens in California. But Vegas right now is hot.
It is hot. And this is true, because I had, I don't know if you know who this is, but Julie Patterson, who is a real estate agent out in California. Julie was on the show and she was telling me, this was months beforehand, that home builders in the area of California, when you go to closing, you renegotiate the contract. Because if you put in the contract and it was 560 at closing, they can go ahead and tell you that it's now 580 because it costs them more money or the market has increased. So they can, home builders, because the way the home builder contract is written, can increase the price, and they don't care if you can't buy it, because they know they have a bank of buyers waiting. I'm like, that would never happen here in Louisiana. We don't do that. And sure as poop, it happened again. It happened here. And I was like, well, anything that happens in California eventually ends up happening everywhere else, doesn't it?
Yep.
So I always am keeping an eye. You're right. California is a catalyst to what ripple effect happens throughout the United States. Once it starts there, that means it's going to happen in your area. So it's almost like that is your crystal ball. We were talking about the crystal ball earlier. Look to see what's happening in California first, and it might happen again here. Old Man Dan says, I'm in my mid 50s. Do you recommend a 30-year loan for the lower payments and the pay the extra per month or the 15 to 20-year loan with a high base payment? What's your opinion about this?
If you can afford it, get a 15-year loan. That's my thoughts. If it stresses you out or makes you house poor, then don't do it. But if you can afford it, why pay the extra interest? That's a lot of money in interest.
My dad refinanced his house and he's over 80 years old, and they gave him a 30-year mortgage. He's like, they have really high hopes for me. I'm just like, and he said, at this point in my life, I don't give a poop how much extra I'm paying in interest. I don't care. I just want a low payment. So he didn't care. He doesn't care. He took the 30-year loan. He's like, he did this like right after he had done all of his chemo treatments and beat cancer and everything. He's like, I can't believe they gave me a 30.
Like, 30 years, I'm good. Go for it. Let's do it.
Yeah, he was like when the guy told him, he was like, yeah, for your 30-year mortgage, he's like, you're going to give me a 30-year mortgage? He's like, yes, Mr. Vince, we are. And there he's like, Kristina, I just saw the video from 10 months ago last night about the tiny home community where this guy invited you out but wouldn't let you video anything. Do you have any updates about that? Yes, actually, I do. The guy, I didn't mention his name in the video itself. His name is Danny Schallenberg. So just know that. And he actually did make some houses in that town. The people that live in those houses will not allow anybody to go film them. And but his idea to build a tiny home community that was completely off the grid is still just that. It's just an idea. And a lot of people have had different types of run-ins with him. And if you really want to know more about him, just go on the Spur, like the county Spur website. They have it on Facebook. Just type in Spur Texas News. And sure enough, there's one little Facebook page. The whole town reads it and talks about it. So if you want to know more about it, go ahead and put in there. Apparently my video was a big hit there. Like, there wasn't once one person in Spur saw that video, everybody in Spur saw that video. So I think there's like a total of like, I think 8,000 people that live in that whole giant little area. So if anybody has any more questions, don't forget to just throw them in there really quick before we have to let Joe go. Joe, how can people find you on the social media webs?
So I guess I don't know. You can email me at realtor@joeeves.com. And if you want to go to my YouTube channel, I don't even know what my YouTube channel is. I think it's Joe Eves.
I don't know. I don't know how people contact me. I don't know.
I don't know. Just, just search Joe Eves. I'm sure I'll show up,
like my name isn't common, like nobody, no one knows the name Joe.
It's just an average Joe. It's not that big a deal. But no, I do a lot on Facebook. I do a little bit on YouTube and then Instagram. If you want to see my Instagram for some good laughs, you can follow me on that.
Like Joe is like downplaying some of his editing skills, but you got to check out his Instagram page because he's got some killer looking stuff on there all the time. I'm like, damn, that was impressive. That was really impressive. Eddie, do we have any questions throwing up? I think I see a couple that are coming up on the screen here. If you want to put one up for us, me and Mr. Joe before he goes. Mr. Joe before he goes.
Mr. Joe.
Hey, Mr. Joe before you go. I hope we didn't lose Eddie. There we go. There was one before that, I believe, too, Eddie, before RHs, just to let you know. Okay. What proportion of buyers have real reasons to move, and what proportion are simply behaving like sheep, but have no true need to move? In my market, with the buyers that I've worked with, everybody has needed to purchase a house. Like they had a lease that was coming up. They were sick of paying the rent. The rent was way too much. So they're ready to buy. Then I had people that they were on the fence if they wanted to buy another house, and then they saw the home prices going up. So they're like, this is probably a really good time for me to sell. So we can go ahead and get that house that has the land so we can put the kids out everywhere. Everybody that I know wasn't doing it just, I can make a quick buck right now. Now I saw a lot of speculators buy houses and overpay for them to fix them up and try to flip them. That happened more towards the end of this year, not the beginning of the pandemonium. But I don't see a lot of people that are just FOMO it. There's a couple of the ones that were first time home buyers that I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah,
but,
yeah. I would say for us, like for me, they have real reasons for moving. And I don't like it. It's not like I'm like, well, why are you moving here? Like it comes up in natural conversation, but a lot of them it's because they aren't happy with the situation that they were in and they want to be in a better situation, whether it's how much money they were paying in rent or how much money they were paying on their mortgage or how much taxes were or what their property taxes were. There's lots of reasons for why people move. Some of them, it's like, hey, I want to be in a smaller community where my kids and grandkids can, grow up in a smaller town rather than, where we came from. So there's lots of different things. So I don't think that, at least in my experience, I haven't seen people move because, they were like, oh, everyone's selling, so I'm going to sell, and they're just doing it. I think they all have like, selling a house is a big process, and just to do it's a lot of work. So, I think that most people, it's motivated by something that either they're able to better their life, they're able to maybe a lot of what I'm seeing is that they're able to upgrade their homes. They're able to get a home that that before they had is, they've had them for 10 years and now they're able to increase the size and make it even bigger, so and not change their monthly payment, or it's very, like, it's changing very little, so it doesn't really disrupt what they're doing, but they want to be in a little nicer area or something like that, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's only been a few that I'm kind of like, you rushed it, you shouldn't have done it. I had one girl that cashed out her 401k to buy a house, which I thought was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. But I mean, you can lead them to water. You just can't make them drink. All right, Eddie, do we have one more question here? All right. Joel CL97 says, what are your thoughts on non-bank lenders making 50% of the loans since 2016 and non-bank lenders having to follow the same Dodd-Frank big bank, more secure lending practices? I don't have any thoughts on this. Do you have any thoughts on this?
No,
I would have to look this up in order to
I'm not
understand.
versed enough in it to even, I would put my foot in my mouth.
Yeah.
Which I would probably make an Instagram video of, but.
Right. I will definitely research. If you want to email me your question, I'll research more about it so I can answer your question once I take a deeper dive into that kind of question for you. info@KristinaSmallhorn.com. That's with a K. Question. Do you know if any lenders allow family members to be co-owners of a house or co-debtors on a mortgage loan? Awkwardly worded. Sorry. No, you make total sense. Yes, you can buy houses with family members. And that is a growing trend throughout the United States, that people that would, like, if you were to buy it for yourself, you may only be able to, let's just say, afford a $300,000 house. But if you bought it with your parents and your brother, you could buy a $700,000 to $800,000 house and everybody could live under one roof. I know that sounds absolutely crazy in the United States, but I'm telling you, that is a thing throughout the rest of the world. It's not a big deal. Everybody's family lives in one house and they're perfectly happy this way. Another thing that a lot of people do is they'll buy a duplex. They'll put one family member on one side and then you live on the other side. That is really great, especially if the one side of the family decides to move out and you could rent that other side of the house out. So that would be an income earning property. Totally something you can do. You just need to speak with your lender, and it happens all the time, and it's become very popular here.
That's actually a really good way to get. I mean, you can even take advantage of like the low interest rates from like an FHA loan, especially if you're living in that duplex. You can do that, and you can rent out the other side, even if it's not to a family member. You can rent it out to whoever, and you can still qualify for an FHA loan. So. That payment could cover your whole mortgage
payment. Yep, it's very common. Like, I wish we had more duplexes here, but you have to go into the city here. Question: is there any financial backing for dome homes DIY? You would have to get a personal loan for a DIY dome home. I just did a video on dome homes just recently. Did it come out already? I think has it come out already? It may have not come out already. No, it did come out. That video did come out. It did come out. Yes. And you would have to get a personal loan depending on how much you're willing to finance. The thing is that I would work with a local lender when it comes to this. And then afterwards, after it's constructed, to see how you can restructure it. So that way you can roll the land and the home into one loan instead of having two separate loans. And the good thing about that, though, is your utility costs are very low, and so is your insurance payments on those. They're really energy efficient. Flex Extreme, the housing market will crash November 12th, 2022, exactly at 1:42 p.m. Oh, let's write it down. He's got it down. Paul says, question: I spoke to a realtor. She has a lender that she works with. She was referring me to them. How much should I shop around? Is there a big difference between lenders? I have an answer for this, but I'll let you take it first.
Yeah, so yes, there is a big difference between lenders. Yes. There is a massive difference between lenders. And if you like the agent and you trust the agent, they probably have shopped through a bunch of different lenders and found out which ones are good and which ones are bad. I have personal experience where I went through, my real estate career when I first started was really hard because I had a bad lender. I just didn't know I had a bad lender because I didn't know any better. But then I shopped around, found another lender, and that lender was night and day difference. And I work with them still today because they're that good. So as far as like, it's always important that as realtors, we're not steering anyone to do anything. So I always will give them a couple cards to call for it because I trust a couple lenders in town, and I'll say, look, give them a call. But they always ask me, well, who would you use? And I actually use them for my personal loan and for my other investment, type stuff. So I have experience with them. So it's very easy for me to refer. But I always tell people, you can still shop around, and you should shop around to make sure that you're getting the best rate. But sometimes what works really well is when you give them that opportunity to shop or get a quote, you just take it back to that lender and they'll match it. If they're not matching it, they're not a good lender. But that's my experience, is that I'm very careful on the loans that I refer, because I want the person to get the house. And the only way, I've dealt with things have fallen through because of the lender. They dropped the ball, they didn't do something, and we had to do an extension. The seller was like, we're not extending. You had this much time to do it. Sorry, we're going to sell it to somebody else. And my clients, had lost out because of that. So yeah, there's a big difference in lenders, just like there's a big difference in realtors.
I have three lenders I always recommend, and I tell them this is the guy I've been working with the longest and who has done my personal stuff. Here's the person that I've worked with many times with many loans, and she is incredible, very good. And this is the other one that I've done a few loans with, and I mean, they've always turned out really well. I've only done a few loans with them. These are the people I recommend you talking to, but always compare and shop your prices around, because it does make a difference. And, sometimes, even though I have those top two lenders, they may not like the personality of the first one. So they go with the second one because they just like the way that they spoke to them better. So sometimes it's not about the numbers, it's how you're treated. So it's always good to shop around and talk to a few. But usually 9 times out of 10, the one the real estate agent recommended to you, you end up finding out, well, that's no wonder why they recommend them. They know what they're doing, I've, like you, at the very beginning.
When they aren't doing it.
Oh, I know, right away. And, and then when I was like you, for that first 3.5 years when I moved here, I went through a lot of lenders, because I was like, oh my gosh, this person's an idiot. As soon as they messed up with something, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
How did you do this? How did you not do this? This is like the easiest thing. Yeah.
I know, so silly. And so, yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is. What do you think about the FHA construction loan? It's a great loan. FHA construction loans are perfectly fine. They're really not much different, except for they send out those inspectors to make sure that they meet FHA requirements. But there's nothing to it. It's a great loan.
It's a new construction, so it's a lot easier actually than a regular FHA loan.
Absolutely, especially on older houses. Sometimes they'll say they're not FHA approved, but they are. And then sometimes they'll say they're FHA approved and they're not. They're not. Yep. All right. Jakir says, I want to buy in Fairfax, Virginia area, around $450,000. Can you please tell me, should I wait another year or more years to buy, or buy now? I don't know the market. I don't know your market. I couldn't answer on that, but I can connect you with a real estate agent that does know that market. I have several in that Virginia area. I've even had a few on my live stream here. So if you're interested in me connecting with a real estate agent out in the Fairfax, Virginia area, let me know. It's info@KristinaSmallhorn.com. Mr. Joe Eves, I want to say thank you very much for spending your Sunday afternoon with all of us. And I want to say thank you to everybody that's been in the chat for this whole hour and 20 minutes. I know your time is precious, and the fact that you took that time to spend time with me to talk about the real estate market means so much to me, because time is probably the most precious gift we can give somebody right now. So next week we'll be doing this again. We're going to be doing the live stream talking about the housing market. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you can feel free to email me or save them for next week. That would be fantastic. And to all of you that have donated to Owen's cancer treatments last week, I want to say thank you very much. And please reach out to me to let me know that you did go ahead and donate to them. And I will be sending you a cup. Just show me a copy of your receipt that you have paid to the to his cancer treatments. All right. Thank you, everybody. See you next Sunday. Say bye,
See ya.
Joe. Say bye, Joe.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. You got to do a little dance. That's what I do.
That's what you do. I'm just like, oh yeah.